Well, everyone, welcome back to the Tundra Cast. I believe this is the third episode, and today we're going to talk about, in our opinion, the most overrated and underrated players on each Metropolitan Division team. Once again, we got Coral, and for the first time on the podcast, we got Siakam.
Hey
So,
everybody, I'm
Siakam
excited.
is, of course, Siakam has a lot of great opinions. He's knowledgeable about the sport, and he's going to be a great addition to the podcast. So
Yeah.
I guess to start off, uh, I guess I'll start off with Carolina with underrated. Carolina is one of those teams that has a lot of really underrated players. A couple that comes to mind is like Table Teravainen and Brett Pesce, Jacob Slavin. But the guy I chose was Martinikas.
Nature's,
After yeah, Nikas. You know,
nature's.
Natchez. There you go. You can say his name like 20 ways. But as a rookie this year, did really well. Had 36 points in 64 games. He was that perfect third line center. I believe he played third line center, but at times he played in the top six for Carolina. But got 36 points, 16 goals, and he's gonna be an elite player in this league at some point. I think he's the perfect 2C for the young Sebastian Aho. You saw a glimpse of what he can do in the playoffs for Martin. 4 points in 8 games, a strong two-way center who's right-handed, which is kind of key in today's NHL. And I really think that he should have gotten more votes for the Calder. Obviously not top three, but I think his season really went under the radar, and he deserves more respect. So that's my underrated player.
All right, well, I'll go number two. I was debating between Natchez and this player, but this is probably really biased, but I gotta go Jake Gardner.
Ah,
I,
Jake the Snake.
yeah, Jake, the man, he does get a lot of hate, and some of it is founded because had some pretty bad moments, but you know, overall, he has a lot of skill. He's a slick skater. When he gets passes through, which is most of the time, really, they are amazing. Like cross rink, jump with the forward passes. It's I he didn't have the greatest season last year. Only 24 points, 68 games, but we saw him be really good on the Leafs when he was hitting 50 points. Um, on this Carolina Hurricanes team where the defense is so deep, I feel like he gets drowned out a bit. But you know, I feel like he definitely has the skill, the talent, and the conviction to be able to jump back and be that top two guy again that he was before.
Yeah, I can definitely see Jake Gardner being underrated, especially on that blue line. For me, I went with a guy who just 2 seasons ago had 75 points, and that man is Vincent Trocheck. Um, he's a really good two-way forward. 4 years ago, when he was in his third or fourth season, he got Selke votes, so he has that great two-way game. He's he was on pace for over 50 points last season. He was on pace for over 50 points this season. And the main issue with Trocheck last year really was that he couldn't stay on the ice. And I feel like a lot of people forgot about that elite two-way game that he can bring, while also giving you 54 to 55 points every season. His possession numbers are great. His Corsi for is 53%. So he's just a really solid all around player. His game's just not as exciting, right? When you look at that Carolina top six, right? You don't think of Trocheck, right? You think of all the young up and comers. You think of guys like Aho, Svechnikov, Teravainen, even. But Trocheck is a really, really solid second line center for that team, a second line forward. He's always consistent, always has great production, always has great possession numbers, and he's that perfect complement, right? Where we look at a lot of teams in the NHL that don't have a lot of playoff success, even though they have the talent. For example, the Leafs, right? And you think, what could a team like that use? Well, they could use a guy that that plays in their top six, that's defensively responsible, that has talent, that has skill, that has speed. And Trocheck, I just feel like doesn't get talked enough about in that Carolina top six.
All right, so not a bad pick, Siakam. For me, overrated was between two players. One of them was actually Trocheck, but I'm gonna go with this player, and this is Ryan Dzingel. You know, besides his past season, he was coming off a year for Ottawa where he had 22 goals and 22 assists. Obviously, got traded to Columbus at the deadline that year, and to me, like, it's not that Dzingel is bad because he does have some skill. I just think that he's overpaid. At 3 mil. Um, Obviously, um, as I like to say, and everyone knows that you don't pay players after huge career years. It's more of a risk. Um, it hasn't really worked out for Dzingel in Carolina. Only 29 points in 64 games, which isn't bad by any means. But for the role he was given and what he was expected to do, it is kind of underwhelming. And to another reason that's just because Carolina's offense and their D is just so stacked. Um, they have a lot of NHL players on that team that can play. And, at times, Dzingel was on the fourth line this year just because he had no room or no place to play. So, I'm putting Dzingel as overrated solely just because of the role he was expected and what he was expected to bring. It's not a knock in the player because I'm actually a pretty big Dzingel fan. I love his game. But just at that price tag, it's not worth it. So I got Ryan Dzingel as my overrated player.
You know what? I'm gonna have to agree with you on that one, Shay. He is like a decent player, but for how much he's getting paid, it's really not worth it. And also, I'm just looking at his advanced stats right now. He as a center, he doesn't really take faceoffs that amazingly. Like last year, I'm just like 31% at faceoffs.
Wow.
Yeah, so it really isn't that great. It's Corsi 4 last year, 50.7, which is right at where you should be, but like for what he was expected to be, second line, maybe third line, I'll say second line center. He didn't really perform that well. So I mean, he's definitely still a solid player for what he's getting paid, for what he was expected to do. It wasn't. It really was underwhelming. Yeah.
Uh, Okay, so mine is actually different. I did consider Dzingel like you guys. It was between him and this other player, and this might raise some eyebrows, but I picked Brady Shea, the deadline
Ooh.
acquisition from
I
the Rangers. Now, a lot of people, Shea is a guy who's really offensively gifted, skates very well, and he had that really great rookie season with the Rangers where he put up, I think it was almost 40 points, right? But ever since that breakout season, he's never had a season where he's had over 25 points. And you can argue that corresponds with the Rangers' struggles after his first season, where they made the playoffs his first season and then never made the playoffs again until they traded him, right? Which is very fair. But even in his time in Carolina, if you look at his advanced statistics, every single year in his career, besides his rookie season, when he's been on the ice, his team has allowed more goals, even strength, than they've scored, right? So if you look at even when he wasn't on a bad Rangers team, when he was on a good Carolina team, in the 7 games that he played, even strength, he allowed 10 goals against while he was on the ice, and his team only scored 6 even strength when he was on the ice with them, right? So that's not like a perfect representation, but if you look at his career averages for Corsi, it's 47.4, right? And if you're an offensive defenseman who can't really play defense that well, if you're not putting up points and you're not controlling the puck and moving the puck and letting the offense set up in the offensive zone, well, then what is your value really? And are you really worth the $5 million that they're going to be paying you for the next 3-4 seasons, right? Um, Especially with the rest of that blue line, with guys like Jake Gardner, Jake Bean coming up, Hayden Fleury, Pesci, right? Like, he's getting top 4 ice time. I don't know if on that blue line that's necessarily justified. So that was my pick for overrated.
You know what? That is actually fair. And you know what? Coming back to the point of Corsi and having an offensive defenseman, Barry is trolling me in the chat saying, uh, Gardner shouldn't be underrated. Well, guess what his Corsi is, Barry? You want to tell me right now? Huh? Oh, wow. By the way, he asked that what Corsi is. So, um, no, Gardner's career Corsi 51.4%, which is above average, but last year 55.6. So I'm just gonna throw that out there for you, Barry.
Just
Oh,
one thing on just one thing on Shea. I agree with all your points, and just going back to the deadline where Carolina gave up a first for Shea, I honestly thought that was a lot to give up for a guy that hasn't really done much since his rookie year. Especially since Carolina's so deep on the back end, and of course that same deadline they got Sammy Vatanen. So I really like the Brady Shea pick from Siakam. So I guess we can go to next team now for Columbus. Underrated. This one was an easy choice for me. I went with Olivier Bjorkstrand. Um,
oh,
Oliver.
this is a guy that he really went under the radar. In 49 games, he had 36 points, including 21 goals. And this is on a Columbus team that is strictly known for its defensive play. Tortorella is really known for hammering down players, sacrificing the body, playing a trap, which means low scoring games like 1-0, 2-1. And this kid just seems to be scoring every other game. And for Columbus, that lost guys like Panarin and Duchesne, and like we mentioned, the Zingle. It was really huge for them that one of the young players like Bjorkstrand decided to step up and give them some more offensive boost. And even the playoffs in 10 games, he had 3 goals, which is basically what you want your players to do, provide goals. Um, I see this kid breaking out next year. I can see him if the season was 82 games, I could see him getting 30 goals because his shot is lethal. He always has a lot of skill, and he seems like the perfect player for Tortorella's system. So Bjorkstrand is my pick for underrated.
No, I'm gonna have to agree with you. He just had such a great season. 36 points, 49 games. He controlled the play a lot, 54.5% Corsi. And just starting in the offensive zone, he had the puck like over 56% of the time. So you know what? That controlling the puck is so important, and on a mostly defensive Columbus Blue Jacket team, that offensive spark is, a welcomed aspect for them. So I got to give it to Bjorkstrand.
Bjorkstrand's definitely a great player. Definitely very underrated. Is this gonna be a trend where you guys pick up the same player and I'm the only guy who's not on the same page?
Well,
Uh,
maybe.
All right, so this pick was not so much analytically based. This pick for mine was actually more of just what I saw from this player, especially during that playing round between the Jackets and my team, the Leafs. And this guy really excites me. He's super young, only 21 years old, and that is Emil Bemstrom, the center that they drafted with a fourth round pick in 2017. Now, if you look at his underlying stats, in 56 games, only 20 points. His Corsi 4 is only about 50%, right? He's playing fourth line minutes, right? Um, the reason I think he's underrated is because I think he plays much better than what his stats suggest. He's a speedy center. He hits. He's physical. I saw him run up against Matthews and against the big Maple Leafs line at specific shifts during the play-in round, and he was all over the ice. He was a great tenacious forechecker. He's that perfect fourth line player for that Blue Jacket system, except he also has the speed and the skill and the youth to continue to get better and one day be on that in that top 6, right? And the reason I think he's super underrated is when you think of the Jackets and you think of all the young forwards they have, you think of Dubois, you think of Foodie. Benstrom's one of those guys that you don't necessarily think about as much in terms of that bright future forward core for the Jackets. But I think outside of Dubois, I think he might be the next most NHL ready most talented player. Because I love Liam Foodie too. Foodie's speed is just exceptional, but Bemstrom is just that prototypical two-way forward that has all the skill that you need. And I think he is someone you need to watch out next year for Columbus. If he starts putting everything together and gets accustomed to playing at the NHL level, I think he could cause a lot of problems. And that pains me as a Leafs.
All right, not a bad pick. So for overrated, it pains me to say this because I'm a huge fan of him. I love him. He played great in the playoffs, especially in one game against Tampa Bay. But this year, he really took a step back. And for me, that's Seth Jones. Like I said, I'm a huge fan of Jones's game. But you just look at his stats like over this past season. His You look at it. First of all, you look at his Fenwick. It went down by a full 2%. His Corsi a couple years ago was at 54. That dropped to 49. 30 points in 56 games for Jones. Honestly, it's pretty good for the D-man standards, but he just really took a huge step back this year, especially when they really needed him the most with all those injuries. I think at one point they had like 12 injuries on the roster. It was insane. I think he can get back to the level he was playing back in 2017, 2018. Because he's still young enough. He's still 25. He still has a lot of potential to grow. But I think the season just taking a bit of a step back put him on this list. But it was hard. It was hard to put him here. So yeah.
Well, I still think Seth Jones. Yeah, I still think he's amazing, but yeah, he did take a step back. But for me, the biggest, the most like overrated player, sorry, on that team is Nick Foligno. A lot of people are gonna get really mad at me for this one, but like, first of all, his face annoys me. Second of all, I
Okay.
yeah, I literally can't stand his face. Just look at it for like 5 seconds and you will literally puke. Anyways, um, he did underperform a lot last year. 31 points in 67 games. Is decent, but like really, at $5.5 million. He really should be getting a lot more than that. And his offensive zone starts below 50%, 48.4. His Corsi 4 is at 50.5, which is just a bit above average, but like, from a player that's getting paid 5.5 million, it really should be better than that. He had
Right.
really good seasons in the past, but his advanced stats, like his Corsi and stuff like that, have been a lot higher. But this year he took a bit of a drop, and you know what? I mean, as good as a player he is, he did drop back, and he's really not playing like he's worth 5.5 million at this point. And you know what? Blue Jackets fans love him. He captained a All-Star team at one point, didn't he? Was that 2 years ago, I think.
Yeah. I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, but like it's dropped off lately, and you know what? He's coming to the end of his career. He's 33 years old, so you know what? It makes sense that he's having the drop off, but yeah, it's just at 5.5 million. I'm not sure that he's worth what he's playing at right now.
Right.
Yeah, for sure. Foligno was number two. I really thought that he's been underperforming, given the way that Blue Jackets fans talk about him. But my pick is actually going to be very surprising. I don't know if you guys are going to expect it. I went with the rookie phenom out of Latvia, Elvis Merzlikins.
Wow.
No way.
Now, before you guys go all crazy on me, I get it. I know he was like fifth in Vezina or something like. He had like 5 votes in the Vezina or fifth in Vezina voting. He made the All-Star game, right? He got Calder votes. I get all that. 923 save percentage is great. 235 goals against. Again, great, right? He's a rookie, right? He only started 31 games, right? He was 13-9. But if you look at the underlying numbers, right, what we have to realize is Columbus's team is so defense oriented. Goalies are
Yeah.
going to play great in Columbus, right? I mean,
Oh,
goalies are going to do great in Columbus. The main issue is that if you look at the underlying numbers, for example, Merzlikins' number of quality starts in a season, right? He's had 17, which is about a little bit over half of his games. And on a team like Columbus that is so defense oriented, you would expect his quality save percentage to be higher, right? 50%, 53% is league average, and his quality save percentage is about 55%, right? So, I mean, obviously he's a great player, but he's not like some young rookie that's like 22, 23 years old that's, that just came in and was amazing, right? He's 26. He's not as young as a lot of people think he is, right? And he's playing in a system in Columbus where they're built to play defense. They're built to keep the puck out of the net, right? And so with that, his stats are going to be inflated. His goals against and his save percentage are going to be inflated because Columbus keeps people to the outside. They force people to shoot from the outside, where a lot of the shots he's facing aren't high danger opportunities, right? And so when you really look at it, you look at the team that's around him, you look at the underlying stats. I think he's a great player. I don't think he's an all-star caliber player. I don't think he's a Vezina level goaltender yet. I think I need to see him play more consistently for a longer period of time, and maybe even like if Columbus, like he needs to show us in big games that he can perform. And I just haven't seen it from him yet. I think I need more sample size.
I guess it's a fair argument because you just saw Corpusalo, in the playoffs, like made 85 saves or something crazy like that.
Yep.
And you look at the previous years where Bobrovsky played exceptional there. I think your point about how Columbus is such a defensive oriented team and just Tortorella's system is perfect. And I can totally see your reasonings. And yeah, not a bad pick. So on to New Jersey. For me, it's another easy one, and this is Jesper Bratt. Um, first of all, he was a sixth-round pick in 2016, and I'm pretty sure he made the NHL like the year after he was drafted. Every year he just seems to get better. First season, 2017-18, this was I believe this was the Hall Hart season, where he got 35 points in 74 games. Next year after that, on a very bad Devils team, 33 points in 51 games. And this season, where the Devils once again weren't the greatest, had 32 points in 60 games. And the thing with Brad is that he never played with guys like Jack Hughes or Palmieri or Nico Hischier. He was always stuck on the third line with Travis Zajac and Miles Wood. And the fact that he's putting up offensive numbers with two very defensive-minded players just speaks a lot about him. He's quick. He has a strong two-way game. Obviously, people are going to look at plus minus, which isn't the best stat in the world. But, my reason for that is because he's on such a bad team. And, I think Matt can justify my reasons more here. I think he'd agree with me that this kid has talent, and just like I said with Bjorkstrand, I can see Brad breaking out. I can see him having 40, 50-point years once he sure steps up, but once Hughes matures, and the with Blackwood and net, that's going to help Brad's defensive numbers a lot better. So, the Devils fans have been hyping this kid up a bit, and I think it's almost time for him to break out. So, I have Brad for the Devils.
all right. You know what? That's a solid pick. You know what? I was considering Brett, but for me, I feel like Damon Severson gets overlooked a lot. You know,
Right.
he's put up 31.69 games on man. What team are we looking at again? Holy crap!
Devils.
Jersey?
He put up 31 points in 69 games on the Devils. It really isn't a good team. His possession stats were not good at all. But like, if you look through the whole team, none of their possession stats were good at all. So, you know what? We'll give him the benefit of the doubt there. And you know what? He's almost hit 40 points the year before. This year, if it was an 82 game season, he probably would have hit 40 points. You know what? Let me do some. Yeah, he probably would have hit 40
he was
points.
my pick too. He was my pick too. He would
Yeah.
have hit the 40-point plateau this season.
Yeah, exactly. You know what? So I feel as if he doesn't get enough doesn't get enough love. He deserves it because he's played out of his mind on a team that really isn't that great at all.
Yeah, so no surprise, I picked Damon Severson as well. He's a guy who logs top 4 minutes on one of the worst defensive teams in the NFL. And people will look at his possession numbers, like Coral mentioned, and sure his Corsi for is this season 47%, but what you also have to keep in mind is his offensive zone start percentage is only 45%, which means he starts 55% of his shifts in his own end on a really bad Devils team that can't keep the puck out of the net, right? So when you take those possession numbers and put them into context, it's like, yeah, his team doesn't have the puck a lot in the offensive zone when he's on the ice, but that's because he spends more time on the ice starting his shifts in his own end, where his entire team can't play defense. And considering, like, if you look at 2017, 2018, -8, playing, logging top 4 minutes, right? The past few seasons, his plus minus hasn't been good, but that's just more of the team around him than his own individual performance, in my opinion. And as a guy who's put in positions to be one of those shutdown defenders on a bad defensive team, him being able to put up 30 plus 40-point seasons as as a member of one of their shutdown lines, as a guy who plays occasionally on the penalty kill for them, I just think he doesn't get appreciated enough. Yeah, Damon Severson too. 100% agree.
All right.
All right. So on to overrated. I'm gonna assume you guys choose the same guy here, and my overrated is Mr. PK Subban. Um, I mean, just I think even an amateur can look at his numbers and think, what a trash year he had. He like I don't know what happened when he came from Nashville to New Jersey. Maybe Lindsey Vaughn did something. I don't know, but yeah, it was not a good year for PK at all. Only 18 points on a 60. Oh well, in 68 games. No, minus 21 is just not great. And the thing that I don't get is that I feel like some of his cost was missed usage because obviously PK is an offensive defenseman, but I don't know why half the time, just looking at hockey reference here, he was starting in the defense zone. Like, you know, if you're putting out your best defenseman, if you want to put out your best defenseman in the defensive zone, you go out with Damon Severson, like you guys have said. No, his Corsi 4 was not good at all. Only at a 47%. His Fenwick, I believe, was at a 48. And once again, the guy makes $9 million, and let me tell you right now, these are not 9 million caliber numbers at all. Um, here's hoping he can rebound because once again, I love Subban. I think he's a class act. He does so much for whatever city he plays in, whether it's Montreal donating 10 million to a children's hospital, or Nashville. I hope he regains his form because once again, I'm a huge fan of his. But just for what he's been paid and the season he had, it's not worth it. So PK is my pick.
Yeah, it sucks. This guy was an elite defenseman at one point. He was worth that $9 million tag, but now he's dropped off, and it's sad to see because he's honestly one of the best personalities in the league. He's such a good guy, and here's like I said, here's hoping he bounces back because he deserves to play well and like have that happiness because he's given so many others so much happiness. So um,
Right.
yeah, I really hope he does have that bounce back.
Man, this is really gonna become a theme, huh? I was going to pick PK Subban, but the more I looked at it, the more I realized that I felt like it was one of those situations where he had such a bad year that everybody knew he had a terrible year. And so to me, like that kind of made it like, is he really underrated now because everyone knows he had such a terrible year and everyone knows he's so bad? That's the only reason why I didn't pick PK Subban. I picked another veteran that's on that relatively young Devils team. I picked Kyle Palmieri. Um, and Palmieri is a good player. My assessment of Palmieri has always been, especially for the past like 2 3 seasons, he's a good middle six guy, right? He's the guy you can put on the second line, he'll perform. You can put him on the third line, he'll perform. But for the Devils, he's become kind of that first line winger, right? That go-to guy on offense, right? And he's just not that. And you look at his Corsi, right? Which obviously is not as important for forwards as it necessarily is, especially since Palmieri is a winger. But his Corsi is at 47% this season, right? Which again, I mean, the Devils are bad, but the only issue is compared to Severson starts 55% of his shifts in his own end. Palmieri starts almost 55% of his shifts in the offensive zone, right? So you have most of your shifts in the offensive zone, but you're not controlling the puck, even though you start with that advantage, right? From -4, and if you look at his shooting percentage this season, Palmieri, if, on base value, 45 points in 65 games, it looks like he's having a career year. His shooting percentage this season is also 16%, right? That's unheard. That's insanely high, especially since his career average is 10%, right? So, like, obviously, if you look at his season, like his past season, you go, hey, he's had a pretty good year, especially on a bad Devils team. But you look at the underlying stats, I mean, he's getting lucky, right? Like, he's shooting so much above his career average for shooting percentage. 6%. 6%. He's shooting 16. His shooting percentage is 16%. Right? So, I mean, if there's regression to the mean and you look at a 10% shooting percentage, the amount of goals that he's going to have, it's going to be a lot lower, right? His production is not going to look nearly as great, especially as a guy who a lot of Devils fans sees as their first line left winger, a really good first line left winger. Uh, I just think he's overrated. I don't think he's that guy.
You know what? That is fair. That is fair, to be honest, because he will. He's supposed to be their top line guy, and he hasn't really performed. 45 points is still decent, but like Siakam said, he's not really performing after the situations he's been put in. But anyways, what are we moving on to now?
We got the Islanders.
Oh shoot!
All right. So Barry's team. Here we go. Um, for me, once again, this was another obvious choice for me, and once again, I don't think he gets talked as much as the other defensemen on his team, and this is Adam Pelech. Um, just just a really good defensive defenseman, and I do believe if he wasn't on that New York Islanders team, the Islanders wouldn't make it that far in the playoffs. Pelech is extremely underrated. He's not a big point guy, which doesn't matter. But he seems to fit Barry Trotz's system well. Um, this past season in the defensive zone, he started 62%. Um, I mean that is relatively high, and I mean that just goes to show you how much trust they have in Adam Pelech. And in the playoffs, he did relatively well. 5 points. He shut down back in the Philly series. He shut down the big guys like Giroux, JVR, and connecting. They were silent just because Pelech and Pulak were such a great duo. And I think Pelech deserves more respect for what he's done in the league since he's came in. And I do believe he's also grown just because of Barry Trotz, the best coach in the league, in my opinion. So, you're with a great coach, and a solid defensive structure. It's gonna make Pelech grow even more. And in 5 years, I wouldn't be surprised if he's one of the best defensive defensemen in the game. So, my choice will be Adam Pelech.
Yeah, so I'm gonna have to agree with you on Adam Pellick because you know what, he's got pretty garbage offensive numbers. You know, garbage Corsi, garbage offensive zone starts. But you know what? That's not what he's there for. He's there to play defense. And you know what? The Islanders, sorry, the are a really boring team. No matter how you slice it, defense isn't fun to watch, and that's what the Islanders are. But Pellick fits that scheme and can shut down the top line. Everyone looks at Pulak as their number one guy. You know what? He probably is. He's that big offensive defenseman, but you need someone to shut it down, and that's what Pellick's there for.
I mean, I think for the first time today, right, guys? I think we have all three consensus here. Uh,
Wow.
I Pellick was the guy. I mean, there's just something about these defensive defensemen who just eat minutes, play solidly, and let everyone else take the shine, right? We look at Pulak, we look at Beauvillier, Barzal, and he's that one guy. You know, he just does his job, and he might be boring in that way, but he's underappreciated, and that's what makes him underrated. He does everything but score, and I mean, you can't argue with that. He's a great
All right. So overrated player for the Islanders. I'm pretty familiar with this guy. Um, you know, uh, this is a guy that I know well, and I know right now a lot of Islander fans are turning their backs against. And this is Jordan Eberle. Um, Obviously, we know the history of him. Game tying goal against Russia in 2008, 2009, unbelievable. Kid was a stud goal scorer, but for me, it's his lack of consistency and just his terrible defensive play. I mean, this is a guy that you don't want to trust into the defensive end, and I know this pretty well. And even you can tell in the playoffs, like he doesn't really back check. He kind of just skates in circles around his own zone whenever the puck is there. Um, Even in his offensive game, needs more consistency. 16 goals in 58 games, still pretty good in the season, but I'm pretty sure in the playoffs he went like 8 games without a goal. He's getting up there in age. Like I think he's turning 31 in a couple of months. So, he's right at that point of his career where he's starting to slow down a bit. And once again, just his Corsi fan work numbers aren't the greatest. He's not really a Barry Trotz player per se. Um, and if I was the Islanders, I try to get someone more suitable for that role to play with Barzell, and someone that can fit because you can just tell that Everly, I don't want to say he hates the system, but it doesn't really suit his type of game where he's more of an offensive, fast winger that can put in 20 goals. And I think 5.5 is a bit too much for Jordan Eberle, especially on a cap strat team like New York that still needs to sign a couple of RFAs. So I'm gonna go with Ebbs for my overrated player.
I'm gonna agree with you on that one. It's got to be Eberle. He just doesn't fit. 40 points, 58 games, still solid, but you know what? It's 5.5 million for someone who really just does not work at all on that team. They could get someone a lot better to be playing with Barzal because let's face it, Barzal could end up being he will end up being a top player in this league, and if he's got no one to play with, then you're gonna end up having another Jack Eichel type of situation here. So yeah, you need someone better than Eberle, and it's pretty obvious, I think.
Right.
just when I thought that we were going we finally got the curse broken. Here we go again. I went with another guy who's about the same age as Eberle. Um, I went with Josh Bailey. Josh Bailey is a great player. He's a top six guy on the Islanders. He's a guy who puts up 50 plus points consistently for the last 4 seasons, right? I mean, he got paid because in the season before he signed his big deal, he had 75 points, right? That was a big thing. The only issue is you look at his advanced stats. Again, I'm not going to hold like the years where the Islanders like weren't so great. because again, that's not fair to him. But last season, Islanders were a great defensive team, right? Grice was having a resurgent year in net for them, and Varlamov, I think, right? That entire system is built off of playing defense, right? And you would think with a team that plays so well defensively, that's so focused on keeping the puck out of their net, a guy like Josh Bailey who starts in the offensive zone 51, 52% of the time would have great Corsi numbers, but he doesn't. His Corsi is only 46%. And on a Isles team that won a lot of games last season, played well last season, he was a minus 12. Now, again, I know the minus 12 isn't, but plus minus isn't the greatest. A good top six option, but I don't think he's that two-way, presence that a lot of people think he is. I don't think he hovers around 30 to 40 hits in a season, gives the puck away, about 2 times the amount he takes it away. He's a good player. He's a top six forward, but is he worth $5 million per year for another? I think it was 4 years, and he's already 30. He's gonna turn 31 soon. Is that the player? And not to mention, this season he was on pace for barely 50 points, and that was with him shooting 15% shooting percentage. And his career average is closer to 11. Right, so I think he's a great player. I just don't know if he's what Islanders fans and what when I think of Josh Bailey, I think of a two-way forward who's got a little bit of grit with talent.
Right.
I don't think he's actually that player. I think he's a good top six forward, but I don't think he brings that two-way game, that two-way dimension that everyone else thinks.
Yeah, good points. I agree that he's not the two-way player everyone makes him out to be. I in fact think Anders Lee is a better two-way player than Josh Bailey. Yeah. So for now, I guess we're on to the Rangers. For underrated, I'm going with another defenseman, and with the Rangers, they had a lot of young defensemen come up this year with Adam Fox, Tony DeAngelo, and Lindgren mostly. Well, okay, so my choice is Ryan Lindgren, by the way. He mostly played with Mark Stahl in a shutdown role, but as a young rookie, 14 points in 60 games, but also a plus 16, and I do in fact think some of this has to do with the influence of Mark Stahl, who's a steady veteran defenseman. Um, but just looking at his numbers, for a rookie, of course he's both Corsi and Fenix at 47. But once again, he's a rookie. It's expected that he's he's gonna start off slow. But on a very the Rangers were a really, really, really good offensive team. Obviously, they added Panarin over the offseason. Fox and DeAngelo are both great offensive defensemen. Ryan Strome took a huge insurgence, but defensively, they weren't great at all. And that's something they really need to improve next year. But Lindgren was a rock solid, steady presence. He shut down teams' top offensive guys a lot of the times. He starts 51% in the defensive zone, and they have a really young, great defenseman here. If they can pair him up with Adam Fox or DeAngelo, and they say someone like DeAndre Miller for the other one, I think the Rangers have a solid defensive group, and Lindgren should get more respect than he deserves.
I'm gonna you talked about Mark Stahl. You know what? He's my pick. First of all, I feel like he was really important to that Rangers team. Like you said, they weren't the greatest defensively. I know he's not on them anymore, but what is he? No, right?
Oh, he's on Detroit.
Yeah, he's
They
on
traded him
Detroit
to
now.
Detroit. They traded him to Detroit. Yeah.
While he was there, he was a hallmark for them. He, like you said, he played the shutdown role with Lindgren. He helped Lindgren a lot, and I feel like he played a big role for them. But as for like a team, as for who's on the team now, yeah, I got to go with Lindgren. That pair for them was huge. They didn't have, they don't have the greatest stats, but defensively they shut it down for what they could. They weren't given a lot of tools and stuff, but you know what, they 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 worked with it. So that pair was honestly
Right.
amazing for them.
You two need to stop doing this, man. You two really need to stop doing this. Really? Again? Again? Okay. All right. Well, I didn't pick Lindgren. I mean, at this point, if Coral and Shay agree, the third opinion for mine is going to be different. Okay, this is just going to be a theme at this point. I went with a much more household name, which kind of contradicts the idea of underrated. Uh, I went with Mika Zibanejad. Surprisingly enough, which I know he got a lot of love this year for the Elky. Um, and so that should technically make him not underrated, right? I just think Zibanejad is one of the top centers in this league, that good, and I think that a lot of people don't think of him that way because of the fact that he plays on the Rangers. Haven't been very good for 3 to 4 seasons now. Um, I mean, a lot of people will like the guy had 75 points in 57 games. I mean, and his Corsi's above league average, and he starts more of his time in the defensive zone, offensive zone. A guy who's playing with Panarin, like he's the prototypical two-way center. He plays the game so well, and the last 2 seasons, his production has really started to uptick. Um, I just feel like he's such a good player. I think that he's a top 15 center in the league. And I just don't think that people perceive him that way. I think they consider him the tier right under, right? You think of all the elite, all the top centers in the league, and then you have those guys that are, borderline all-stars who are good players, and they put Zibanejad in there. I think, call me recency bias. I think Zibanejad is that good. I think he deserves more love. I think he's one of the most underrated players on that Rangers team.
I to an extent I agree with you. I still don't think he's, like you say, like an elite center in the league, like top 15. Was it you said?
Yeah, I think he's top 15.
Well,
But
I'm not sure I completely agree with that because you know what, he's playing with Panarin, which you said, and Panarin for me he was the MVP, and I talked about him being in. What did I say? I don't know. I feel like I said I had him in my top five
Yeah.
when we were ranking. Yeah,
yeah,
when we were
Yeah.
ranking our top 10 players, and he I feel like he brings up Zibanejad a bit. I'm not gonna give it all. I'm not gonna chalk it all up to that. Zibanejad still played great, but I feel like before, when he didn't have that like bona fide star, he wasn't performing this well, and suddenly Panarin shows up and he is. So I'm gonna have to chalk
I, I
some of it
mean,
up
I
to it.
mean, I can see that. To be fair, though, Panarin did play a lot of his minutes with Strome as his center last season, right?
Yeah.
So not all of Zibanejad's production was because he didn't play as much with Panarin as people thought. He started off the season with Panarin, but they tried to balance out the lines as the season went on. So he
Yeah.
Strome with Panarin, but yeah, I don't know. Like Zibanejad is just one of those guys where it's like, like I feel like he's fringe. Like you're either high on him or you just good player, not great player. I just
Oh,
happen to be one of the guys who thinks he's great.
All right.
would you mind saying that again? Sorry, didn't hear.
Yeah, you're cutting out a bit.
Oh, yeah. I just think the thing with Zibanejad is you either think he's really, really amazing, or you think he's just a fringe all star guy, right? And
Yeah.
so it really comes down to what your personal kind of analysis of him is. I just love Zibanejad as a player. I'm a
Right.
sucker for those two-way guys.
Fair.
So for overrated, it was between two centers, and now it's Ryan Strome or Mika Zibanejad. Uh, I'm gonna try to give. I'm gonna just. Well, first of all, I'm gonna just say my overrated player, and that's Ryan Strome. But just one take on Zibanejad. The reason why I kind of had him this at overrated is because a couple years ago he wasn't the best defensively. Minus 23, minus 12 once again, plus minus not the best stat, but that just goes to show you how much Defense two-way is not his game. And this year, I mean, 41 goals is great, 57 games, but his shooting percentage was at 20%, and that is really, really unsustainable. I mean, he was on pace for 60 goals. Um, I like the last time he had the 60 goal scorer was in 2012, and I'm sorry, I don't think Zibanejad would have hit 60 goals if he had a full year. But
That's
to
fair
my
enough. That's definitely fair.
yeah. But to my player, once again, Ryan Strome, like what Siakam and Cordell said, played with Artemi Panarin for most of the year, if not all of the year. And he just broke out 59 points in 70 games. Um, I mean, it pains me because I'm an older fan, and we traded him for Ryan Spooner, which sucks. But it's not like Strome is bad. I still think he's a solid center slash right winger. I just think his stats were really boosted because he was playing with a Hart Trophy nominee, and let me pull this up here. His Corsi wasn't the greatest. Only at 48%. His Fenwick was above average at 50. And if you take away Panarin, he's probably a 35, 40 point guy. But just because he played with, an insanely talented winger, he almost hit a 60-point plateau. I don't expect him to do the same for years to come, especially since the Rangers have younger guys coming up like Brett Howden and Vitaly Krasov. So, and once again, Zibanejad, who should be at that first line spot. So, my pick will be Ryan Strome.
I was debating between Ryan Strome and this player right here, but I decided that I'm gonna go with this player because you know what? First of all, I hate him. He like this is a lot of bias. I kind of did the same thing before, but I just hate this guy. Chris Kreider.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know why. Actually, no, I do know why, but still, I hate this guy a lot. First of all, his contract is horrible. 6 years at 6.5 million for this guy. I really don't think that's worth it. I don't know if you guys agree or not, but um, 6 years and he's already 30 years old. And he performs decently, but I mean, I feel like his stats are also kind of inflated from being able to play with someone as good as Panarin, even though it's not on a consistent basis. 48.2% Corsi for. If you're honestly, that team is usually that New York team has a pretty solid offense, and for the most part, these guys are above 50%, and this guy's below. Um, he's his shot percentage this year was 15.4%. I don't think he can keep that up, and that's the only reason he hit those 24 goals. He got really lucky, and I don't think that he's going to be able to sustain that, and I don't think that he's worth 6.5 million for another 6 years. I really feel like he's going to drop off at some point, and I'm going to chalk up a lot of his success to, first of all, luck, and second of all, Panarin.
Yeah, just one thing on Kreider. I completely agree that his contract is so bad. You don't want to give a power forward 7 years at 6 to 6.5 mil. And I'm pretty sure Kreider's like 28 or 29 years old.
29.
We've seen similar players get 6 mil at 7 years, most notably Milan Lucic. So, not saying he'll fall down as Lucic because Kreider still has his speed. He still has more offensive game. But that contract is going to hurt the Rangers in the butt in 3 years when guys like Shesterkin's up Fox. They already have Jacob Trouba for 8 mil, which is severely overrated. Like I was considering him also for my overrated players. So, just a terrible contract. And I can see why you put him there.
Yeah, I went with Kreider as well. It's just, Kreider is like kind of that. I feel like a lot of people look at Kreider through that Brendan Gallagher, Nazem Kadri kind
He's
of
not,
lens.
by the way.
He's not. He's not. I will never compare Kreider to Kadri ever again. That's not even just me being a Leafs fan. Not that player. He's not as gifted offensively as either of them, to be honest. Kreider he's just like one of those guys where fans love him because he's physical. He hits a lot, and he can score some goals as well. He's a tough guy who's not useless on offense. He's above average on offense.
He's your prototypical fan favorite, basically.
Exactly, right? He's a guy who will hit the other team. He's not afraid to get scrappy and who can put the puck in the net. More often than way more often than some of the other grinders, right? Or power forwards. The issue with him is again the age, the contract, and Coral's already mentioned his Corsi. His Fenwick is lower than Strome's, right? I just feel like the talent's not quite there, right? We like to think of Kreider as this talented power forward, right? Is he really? Like the guy had 45 points in a top six for New York that was deadly this season, right? You can say, well, he didn't play that much with Panarin. He played with Zibanejad. Zibanejad had 40 goals.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
Like whichever line you put him on, there's a guy who was playing amazing that season offensively, right? And
Right.
I mean, if you're playing shift in, shift out with him, right? Like some of that has to rub off somewhere, right? Like how are you only going to be at around your career average playing with a guy who's having an all-time great season in Zibanejad, right? Like I just think he's overrated. I don't think he's that good.
Yeah,
I think he's not that good.
and you know what? People comparing him to, I think he's more of a Tom Wilson type player, but not even as close to as good. He kind of plays that way where he has a bit of offensive flair, but he's physical. But you know what? I look at someone like Zach Hyman, who's got that tenacity, that bit of grit, but he's not that skilled. But he is able to work hard really and just get the puck to better players, and that works for him. That's why he's a first line forward. He can play with players that are that good. But you know what? Kreider just feeds off of them instead of feeding them, which is really not what he should be doing. So that just adds to it.
Rangers fans are gonna hate us now.
Yeah.
He's like a cult hero over there, man.
All right, so let's go to Philly now. For underrated, for Philly, I had a tough choice choosing underrated and overrated, kind of like I had to with New Jersey. But for underrated, just looking at his stats and his advanced analytics, I'm gonna go with Scott Lawton. This is a guy who played half the season, well, just over half the season last year, 49 games, had 27 points, including 13 goals. He actually took, I believe, he won 53% of his draws. He took around 280 draws. He was on that third line a lot of time, rotating center positions with, I believe, Morgan Frost. Um, plus 13 on a decent Philly team. His defensive zone draw numbers 56%. And once again, this is another guy that is still kind of young, 26, so he's just about to hit the prime of his career. And this is what Philly needs. He was the one that really stepped up during the Islanders series when they went to 7 games when Giroux was silent because of Adam Pelech, like we mentioned before. And he's getting better every year. The year before that, 32 points, got 20. The year before that, got 21. So he's improving every year, which is nice to see. And I mean, he looks like a 20-goal scorer that can play on the power play on the PK for the third line. And that's what, honestly, every team should have. That third line guy that can do everything. He's a Swiss Army knife. He can play center. He can play wing. Strong two-way game, physical, fights, can score goals, can play make, everything. So my pick for Scott is Scott Lawton, and his contract is actually pretty team-friendly too. And for Philly, that's huge. So that is my pick.
Now I'm gonna go with this player. You know what? So he's first of all he's a defenseman. His name is Philippe Myers. Um, he 16 points in 50 games. First of all, you know what? That is solid. He's only 20. He's only 23, which means he's got a lot of room to get better. I think for the Flyers, it's really big for them because first of all, he's going to be part of their top 4. I think he's already part of their top 4. He's got really good possession stats. Not really good actually. 51.4, so like decent possession stats, and he's pretty solid when starting in the offensive zone too. And I feel like for them, who do they have on defense, right? They got their Ivan Provorov. They got their they got their Matt Niskanen.
Anaheim.
Yeah, Travis Sanheim.
Gosh, it's there.
Gosh, is fair. So you know
Well, I'm
what?
not a big fan of.
Oh, and that too. So you know what? They got some wild cards, I guess I'll call them, on that defense. But I think Myers is he's a steady player. He's gonna put up the same amount of points that he usually does, and he's gonna play the same way that he usually does. And I feel like they need that bit of stability on their blue line, and Myers, he's gonna be able to provide that, I think.
Yeah, isn't he a righty too? I'm pretty sure
Yeah,
he's
he's
a righty.
Yeah, he's
right?
a righty.
He's a righty. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, before I say my guy, I just want you guys to tell me who do you think is the best forward on the Flyers?
Connect me.
Yep.
Oh
I
no.
would disagree.
Oh.
I
Are you
think, and
Vortex?
this is who my player is. I think it's Sean Couturier.
Ooh.
Oh, okay.
The guy just won the Selke, and no one knows about him. The guy just won the Frank Selke Award for the best defensive forward in the game. And when you think of the Philadelphia offense, right, of their best forwards, you think of Konechny, you think of Giroux. You might even think about guys like
JVR.
Voracek or JVR before you get to Couturier, right? But I mean, I think you guys will be shocked when I read you his stats from the last 3 seasons. The 2 seasons before the lockout shortened season, he had 76 points both years, right? He was a 30 goal scorer both years, 40 plus assists both years, right? You look at his season this year. The guy had 59 points in 69 games, right? Like as a guy who and then you look at his possession numbers. The guy he starts obviously because he's one of their top 6 forwards. He starts 52% of the time in the offensive zone. His Corsi is almost 57%. His Corsi 4 in less than 20 minutes a game, right? He's one of the few forwards that I can find that have more takeaways than giveaways. The guy has 40 takeaways this season to 36 giveaways, right? And that's not just something that he just discovered this year. Last year, he was about even. He only had one more giveaway than takeaway. The year before that, he had 48 takeaways to 37 giveaways, right? And he's not and the past few seasons, his shooting percentages haven't been astronomical, right? It's been 12%, 15%, which is high, 13%, 12%, 9%, right? His shooting percentages haven't been through the roof, right? And you look at that Flyers top 6 and he's what, the 4th or 5th guy you might think about? When in reality, I think he's the most valuable player in that top 6. He's an elite two-way forward who puts up 70 points a season, 30 goals a season, has great possession numbers, will take the responsibility of playing against the other team's top line, and he's a plus 21. He's a plus 21, which isn't the greatest stat, but he's a plus 21 playing against other teams' top lines as the shutdown center. I just think he's an amazing player.
And one more thing to add on to that is that he gets paid $4.3 million for the next 2 years,
Oh my God.
Oh, geez.
which is a steal of a contract. So that's amazing for Philadelphia to get a team-friendly contract on the books like that.
I did. Yeah, see, I can just open my eyes. Holy crap.
Yeah.
Couturier, man, he's such a beast.
Oh, okay. So I'm first. Okay, let's get the overrated done quickly because I'm gonna enjoy ripping on Pittsburgh.
All right. For overrated, it was between 2 players, Kevin Hayes, but I kind of foreshadowed my pick here, and this is not Sean, Shane Gostisbehere. The guy had a great rookie year. I'm pretty sure he broke an NHL record for a point streak for a rookie defenseman. The year after that, took a bit of a step back. Was a minus 21 that year, 39 points compared to the 46. Year after that, he got 65, and I think that made everyone look at him like, oh my god, an elite offensive defenseman for Philly that can maybe crack 71 year. But then you look at his next 2 years, 37 points, 78 games, and minus 20. In this past year, 12 points in like 42 games, which is average numbers for a defenseman. That's like third pairing, low end, second pairing tier numbers. Um, surprisingly, his advanced analytics weren't bad. 52% for both Fenwick and Corsi, but just for how much he's fallen off and how much he was highly touted a couple years ago, it's a shame to see him, to see his role in his production diminish. And there's been trade rumors for the past couple years about where could he go, how much could he get, and I do believe that he still has game left. I still think he can get to his 40 point, 50 point self. Not, I don't think he can reach his 65 points again, but he's still young enough to to make a good comeback in his career. I just don't think it's in Philly because of the amount of defensive prospects he have with Myers, of course, Sanheim, Provorov, even Robert Hag doesn't get talked a lot. Um, I think it's time for Gossespierre to get a fresh start, and that might be what he needs to rejuvenate his career. So here's hoping that he can do that.
They already advocating for the Oilers to sign him when he hits free agency.
Oh God, no, F that, no.
All right, you go, Coral. You go,
All
Coral.
right, yeah. So I gotta agree with Shay. Shane Goss is, you know what? He had such a good season, and you know what? Everyone thought that 4.5 million for this guy was a steal. And you know what? In the beginning, I was inclined to agree, but it's dropped off a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just like Shay said, his advanced analytics still show that he's a solid defenseman. But you know what? A lot of bottom pairing defensemen have really good advanced analytics, and that's what makes them good for the bottom pairing. But if you're not producing as a top pairing defenseman in like just your goals and your assists, then what are you even up there for? Why are you getting paid $4.5 million? You know what? He's got to step it up. If he can step it up this year, that $4.5 million deal is still amazing. He's got 3 years left on it, but he's got to switch something up because, first of all, his spot's going to get taken if he ends up staying in Philly, and second of all, his value is going to start dropping. And at his next contract, if he even is playing in the NHL when he makes it there, his value is going to have dropped off a lot, and he's not going to be able to get paid what he got paid after his amazing seasons in the past.
Yeah, I mean, this guy was a former top 10 Norris vote, like just
Yeah.
2 seasons ago, right?
Yeah.
He was in the All-Star voting, right? He was a great player, 60 something points. But I mean, playing on the second pair, and Philadelphia is trying so hard to put this guy in a position to succeed. He throws 57% of his shifts in the offensive zone to start. They're putting him, when they have an offensive zone faceoff, they're putting him in there. They're trying to get him going after he had a down season last year. And all he has managed to do is score a whopping 12 points in 42 games, playing almost 20 minutes a game, and being one of their go-to guys on both the power play and on 5-on-5 in the offensive end. I mean, I don't know who else it could have been here for Philadelphia besides Gostisbehere. I think he's got all the talent in the world. I don't know what's happened. I don't know what's going on, man. 12 points? This man was on pace for 24 points
Yeah,
for the entire season.
it is
It's
a
rough.
shame. Yeah.
All right, Pittsburgh.
Oh, finally.
Underrated. We got the GOAT, Cody Ceci. No, I'm kidding. No, not.
Oh, God, just don't
No,
mention
Mike Matheson, man. Matheson.
exactly.
Matheson. Look at those great contracts.
It's Teddy Bluger.
Elite decor.
Oh my God.
But seriously, for Pittsburgh, it was between 3 players. It was so honestly, it was so close between these 3 guys. I would just say the 2 who I was deciding between. 2 of them were Teddy Bluger and Oiler draft pick John Marino. But my pick for most underrated is Brian Rust. The Penguins were depleted like hell this year. Malkin was out for some time. Crosby was out for half the season. Gensel got injured in like December, and this guy really stepped up. And I don't think a lot of people know this, but this is Brian Rust. 56 points in 55 games with once again, the top two centers out for during the year. Like, who's Pittsburgh's number one center at that time? Jared McCann. Like, are you gonna put like Jared McCann's on number one center? And the fact that Russ kept on producing when these guys were out and leading the Pittsburgh offense with 27 goals is just astonishing. And gets paid 3.5, a steal of a contract. Corsi 51, Fenwick 52. Pretty good numbers. 59% in the offensive zone. I mean, the guy just went off, and if he did play a full year, if the season did continue 82 games and he stayed healthy, he could have hit 70 points. And this once again, this is without two. Well, this is without Sidney Crosby and another very good player, Evgeny Malkin. So, Russ is my pick, and he should be talked about way more.
Yeah, you know what? I gotta agree with you on this one. I haven't seen Captain, but I feel like he could be a dark horse for them. But so far, it's definitely been Rust. He stepped up when they had no one left. He's usually playing with Malkin, and like you said, Shay, if the season went on and he was playing with Malkin for the rest of the season, he could have been a 70, 80 point player even maybe. So when he came up during that playoff run where the Penguins were completely injured, they had Jake Gensel, they had Brian Russ, they had a couple other players coming up, and you know what? I always thought that Brian Russ was the best of them. I still think he's the best of them actually, because we're gonna get to that probably.
Oh, no.
Yeah, he stepped up when they needed him most, and he's on a steal of a deal, like Shay said. So there's not much to say about him except that he's amazing, and he needs to get talked about more. He's one of their top players.
Should have went with my gut with Brian Ross. Now I'm going to be the odd man out again. My Leafs homerism got the best out of me.
Oh,
I went with Cappy. Very Kapanen.
Yep, cheeks clapping in.
I just think that he's such a good player that's been underappreciated because where he just didn't fit in their top.
You mind saying that again?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just think Captain's such a great player, and that he's just been overshadowed because he was playing in Toronto as a third liner, where even when he had opportunities to play in the top six, his play style just didn't match the other guys he was playing. I think he has elite speed. I think he's a great player. I think his shot is underrated, and I think that in an offense where he's got guys like Crosby, who aren't necessarily the fastest guys, right, anymore, given their age with Crosby and Malkin, he can add some of that breakaway speed, really help, stretch out the ice for other teams when they're playing. And I mean, the guys, if he played a full season this year, he would have been back-to-back 40-point producer.
Yeah.
On the third line, right? And Toronto's third line, like, if he played like 13, 14 minutes a game, I mean, I just feel like in a top six role, he's a guy that can get you 30 goals a season, 50 to 60 points. I just think he's that talented. I think if he got the opportunity to play top 6 minutes with a system that he fits in, I think he'd be amazing.
Yeah, I gotta agree with you on Cappy. I had it between Rust and Cappy, but I just hadn't seen Cappy play. And like Siakam said, he's so fast. He's money in the bank for at least a breakaway a game, and he's an elite penalty killer. He can really space out the ice on the penalty kill because people have got to be scared that this guy's going to be able to get behind them and get in on goal on the penalty kill. And I feel as if that, Crosby has elevated every single player that he's played with. Unlike a lot of, maybe any other player ever in the NHL. That's his specialty. He's turned third liners into stars, bona fide stars. And I think he could do the same thing with Kapanen, and Kapanen's going to be able to get him the puck because of his tenacity, his speed. So I'm going to agree with Siakam on that one. But, I just haven't seen him do it yet. So that's the only thing.
Rust was a great pick, too.
Yeah. There's 2 picks right there.
All right, here we go. Overrated.
I'm chomping at the bit, bro.
Can I make a list?
Bro.
I'm just going to say this right now. Someone in Tundra's going to kill me for this.
Oh, yeah, same.
Oh, yeah.
Same. 100%.
My pick's Jake Gensel.
Uh,
Honestly, I mean, I want to see what this guy can do without Malkin or Crosby. Every single
oh,
year, every time he plays on a line, he's always with Malkin or Crosby. And Crosby has been besides coming into this year, has been a top 3 player in the league, consistently. And with Crosby's high IQ, his playmaking, his defensive play, once like Coral said, he can carry average players into studs. And I just don't know. There's something about Gensel that just makes me scratch my head. Most of his starts are in the offensive zone, which means he barely gets to play in his defensive zone. So I can't really judge him off his defensive stats. I mean his chorus he's high, his Fenwick's high, but I mean that's also just because the Penguins are a powerhouse team. I want to see what he can do by himself. Um, his shooting percentage, consistently first year 20%, second year
yeah.
13%, third year 18%, and this year 16%. There's no way like to all the great players that play in this league, no one
Yeah.
consistently has a 16% shooting percentage. That's unheard of. And he doesn't slow down because he plays with elite players. Like, a good example I look at, I like to compare to is what's his face? Ty Ratty. When he was in Edmonton, right? He got put with Connor McDavid right there and then, and he had like 12 points in 14 games. As soon as they took him off, Ratty started to struggle, and already his defensive numbers weren't the best. And this reminds me of Gensel. Both are young. Both, were in the AHL before their quote unquote breakout years, and both of them immediately get put with the best players in the NHL. And I just want to see more from Gensel. If Gensel can play on his own line and consistently put up 50 to 60 points by himself, I'll take back what I said. But for right now, I'm not a huge fan of Jake Gensel at all.
I got to agree with you, Shay. It's just it really isn't enough, right? He's playing with two top players in the league, two top 15 players, two top 15 players in the league. These guys are amazing in Malkin and Crosby, and he's just he hit 20 goals this year in 39 games, but how much of that was Crosby and Malkin? How much of his 40-goal season was Crosby and Malkin? Um, if you take them away, how much? Like even Ira, the depressed Pens fan in the Tundra cabin, has said that he's a 30 goal without one of those two. I think that is way too much. I say
Yeah, that's absurd.
I say that's 20 at most.
Yeah.
He's a good player. I still think Russ is better. Like you look at these stats, offensive zone starts at 62%. There's no way you do that by yourself as a winger. Like you need your center to be able to get the puck, and that's what Crosby does. He is, in my opinion, just an absolute beast, and he was the best player in the world until like last year. And it really just elevated Gensel's stats so much, and I don't think it's like I think half of what he's done is up to him. The other half is to Crosby, and Ira can get as mad about this as he wants, but you know what? If you got Sid on your team and players are playing this good when they really aren't that good, it's gonna come.
And that's the reason why I put Russ as the most underrated, because Malkin and Crosby were both out for a significant amount of time. So, like I said, Russ was over a point per game,
Yep.
and he basically proved to me and a lot of people that he can carry the load when he has to. So that's what Gensel needs to do to make me impressed with him.
Like I feel like Gensel's rise in the NHL speaks more about the wingers that Pittsburgh had at the time more than what it says about Gensel. Okay?
Yeah.
You look at his career offensive zone start percentage. Career is at 60%.
It's crazy.
His entire so that means that he came into the NHL and the coach looked at his lines and went, "We don't have a single winger to play with Sidney Crosby or Evgeny Malkin. So we're going to put you on the first line. And when we have an offensive zone face-off, I am putting you on the ice because Crosby's on the ice, right? I mean, like as Shay mentioned, holy 20, nearly a 20% shooting percentage his rookie season, a career average of 16%.
It doesn't happen.
Ovechkin doesn't shoot that percentage. I mean, speaking of Ovechkin, a specific Penguins fan, Tundra, thinks Gensel is better than him. I mean, people like Penguins fans think Gensel is the next Ovechkin because the rest of their wingers are so awful. They have no one else to cling on to but Gensel. Like that's literally the case. Like, who is the last great winger in his prime that the Penguins had that played with Crosby?
Patrick Hornquist, Chris Kunitz.
Chris Kunitz? Patrick Hornquist? I mean, like the Penguins have never had an elite winger to play with Crosby and Malkin. And all of a sudden they get this young kid who's like 24 years old, who had a 40-goal season, and all of them are just like, oh, he's the next Ovi. Because they need someone to take over for Crosby and Malkin when they retire. They need that hope, right? They don't have anyone else, right? Like, you look at their offensive prospects, they had Hallander, then they traded him away. They only have Poulin. He's their future. He's their entire future on offense.
And they'll probably trade him away in a first round. And they'll probably trade him away in a first round pick, like for Tomas Tatar at the deadline or something. Like
exactly. Like, they need Gensel to be the next Ovechkin. And that's why they're putting him on that pedestal, because they know they don't have anyone else after him. And so he's overrated. He's until he proves to us that he can put up the numbers he's putting up right now without Crosby or Malkin, without an elite top 15 generational, like top 15 in their generation player, until he can prove that he can put up those stats without them, he's not better than Ovi. And that specific person in Tundra can get as mad at me as he wants. He knows it's true. Don't at me, bro. You know it's true.
Just one thing on the winger part. I can make an argument that they haven't had a great winger since James Neal, who put up 80 points with those two guys. He was later traded for Hornquist, of course. But yeah, like we all said, until Gensel can actually prove that he can put up the points, as he did by himself, I'm sorry, I'm just not a huge fan.
And you know what? I'm just gonna share this story. I was in the Instagram comments, which never goes well, by the way.
Yeah.
And there's this absolute tard comparing this. First, we've already got fans comparing him to Ovechkin. Then we got this fan compared it to Marner. First of all, I see Shaden Shergill over here. He compares him to Nuge, and it's all in good fun, but at least it kind of makes sense. What the hell, man?
Gensel's not even a playmaker, bro.
Oh
he just shoots the puck.
God, man.
He lets Crosby get him the puck and he shoots into an open net.
Exactly.
Would it be considered a hot take that I wouldn't even have Gensel my top 50 wingers solely because he's putting up this production with Sidney Crosby?
I would not blame you.
I wouldn't blame you. I mean, I probably would still put him in the top 50 just because, like he put up the numbers. There's some players who you put on that line who wouldn't put up those numbers, right? So he's definitely got talent. It's just that better than Ovechkin. Are you out of your mind? Oh, no.
All right. So let's go to the final team, the Capitals. Oh. I think we spent the most time talking about Pittsburgh.
Well, how long was that, by the way? Let me see when I started
this. Like 20 minutes, honestly.
You know what? Yeah, it was. We got 12 minutes on ripping on Pittsburgh. You know what? And I love it.
I love it.
So my underrated player for Washington, without a doubt, Jacob Vrana. This is a kid that in his rookie year, this is the year the Capitals went to the Cup, was a major contributor, had 27 points in the regular season, but in the playoffs, if hockey reference control here, yeah, in the playoffs, had 8 points in 23 games, which is actually pretty decent for a rookie that's sheltered in the bottom six, and after that he exploded. Next year after that, got 47 in the 18-19 season, 24 goals, and this year 25 in 69 games, including 52 points. And the thing about him is that his shooting percentage is average 13%. So the fact that you're getting 25 goals and only shooting 13%, that's a pretty good sign. His Corsi is above average at 51. His Phoenix at 52. And both his offensive and defensive starts is at 50%. And he's on a steal of a deal right now. Only 3.35 this year. Then he's an RFA, so he's due for a big pay raise. But for a team like Washington that was always in the playoffs year after year, they don't have a lot of young talent besides him in the pipeline. Like no one notable that can make a strong impact in 2, 3, 4 years. So
McMichael might argue with that.
Hey.
McMichael's their only guy though. McMichael's their only guy.
Yeah, I forgot about Connor McMichael. But Brown is the type of player they need because there's a couple guys age on that team. Like Ovechkin's 35. Like I think he'll break Gretzky's record, but realistically, he's probably done in 5, 6 years. Not a lot of time left for. Not a lot.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
They need these young, strong, goal-scoring wingers that can come up through the pipeline and play with Kuznetsov, who's going to be their future number one center once Backstrom finally retires. So, I feel high on Rana. Once again, 52.69 games, pretty good. Good shooting average, and I can see him hitting 30 in 1 year.
I'm gonna agree with you on Vrana. Like you said, there's not much else that the Capitals have. This guy's only 24, and he's already putting up some crazy numbers. And but you know what? He does have a bit of weakness on defense. But you know what can you do? He will work on it as time goes past. But your point to Ovechkin, I don't even think he lasts that long. I think he's gonna drop down to he's gonna play for a while first of all, but he's not gonna be able to score 50 goals for maybe after another 3 years after he's lost Backstrom, that kind of Carlson's dropped off even more, that kind of thing. I don't feel like he's gonna be able to keep that up as great as he is. And also there's the fact that that there's reports that he wants $13 million. So
Yikes.
yeah, so it's a pretty big pay raise already, and then he's already pretty old at 34 years of age. He doesn't have much left, and Vrana is one of the only guys they have coming up to replace him. I mean, you can't ever replace the Grade A, but he's the closest they've got so far, and he's done a pretty good job for what he has. So, got to give it to him.
I was gonna go with Vrana, but the only reason I didn't end up going with him was because I felt that he was in a situation kind of like the Gensel thing, where he's the only notable young winger that they have, and so I feel like a lot of Capitals fans and a lot of people who don't really watch the Capitals will look at him and think that he's one of their really good young and upcoming guys, right? And damn it, and again, you two agree, and I'm the one. Guys, I promise this isn't something that we set up. I just okay. All right. I don't even know what to say at this point. But my guy is a guy who's been a career fourth liner. Who last season for the Capitals only played about 11 minutes a game. Your prototypical fourth liner, third line tweener. And that's Richard Panik, former Leaf.
Oh wow.
And I feel like when you look at teams, a lot of the fourth liners don't get that much love, right? Because fans love people who put the puck in the net, and fourth liners usually don't put the puck in the net. But when you look at Richard Panik's stats this year, he had 22 points in 59 games, right? He was on pace to have 30, 40 points. Last year with Arizona, he had 30 points. The year before that, on the fourth line, he had 30 points, right? With Chicago, he had 44 points, right? That's not a fourth line player. That's a guy who can legitimately play in your middle six, right? And on top of that, not only does he have great stats for a fourth liner last season, his Corsi was amazing. He had almost a 55% Corsi as a fourth liner, playing about 50% of his time in the offensive zone. Right, so he's got great possession numbers. He puts up way more points than most fourth liners could ever dream of putting up. And on top of that, he's another one of those rare players that you find in today's NHL that tends to have more takeaways than giveaways. This season, it wasn't as great. He had 21 takeaways, he had 29 giveaways. But the season before, 46 takeaways to 39 giveaways. The season before that, 26 to 14. The year before that, 30 to 23. The guy who takes the puck away, who's a solid fourth liner, who's not making a whole lot of money, and can pitch in at his best a 40-point season, but is almost consistently a 30 to 35 point scorer, playing only 10 minutes a game.
Yeah.
I think he's very underrated. I think he's a great player.
No, that is that is honestly a good pick. I should have
Yeah.
looked at that honestly.
All right. Now time for overrated. I know one Capital fan in Tundra that's gonna kill me. And if you're watching this, Gleeds, I'm sorry, but I gotta do this.
Weedemon.
For me, this is Tom Wilson. Um, I'm gonna use the exact same reasons I used for Chris Kreider. He's a power forward. You shouldn't give power forwards $5 million at 6 years. And yeah, sure, 20 goals, 44 assists, but he's playing the top six with Backstrom. He's on a power play with the greatest goal scorer of all time and one of the best playmakers in the game still, and Nicholas Backstrom. And I'm looking at his Corsi, and for a solo team with the Capitals, it isn't the best. It's just average at 50-50. This is a guy that only a couple years ago only had 19 points. Even last year had a 17% shooting percentage. This year is at 14 when his average is at 10. So he's really up there. He's giving away the puck more than he is taking it away, 40 to 25, which isn't ideal at all. And this is like Chris Kreider 2.0, except that he's a budget version of Chris Kreider for me. So yeah, I have Wilson as my overrated player.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with that. And you were talking about Chris Kreider. I think Chris Kreider is like a bit worse than Wilson. I think he's got a worse contract, so he got a bit better off there. But still, Wilson's not that great. Like as a power forward, you expect him to be at least decent defensively, and he's not. Defensive zone starts 48.6 on the Capitals. Like, come on, man, right? And then expected goals against. He's got an expected goals against of 42.4. His league total, his career total, is 224.9. I find that crazy considering how good of a team he's on. Like last season, he had a 45.2, and his goals for expected was 37. Like it's just crazy to me how this guy he's playing with such good teams. Such good players like Backstrom, Kuznetsov, Carlson when he was at as good as he was. Ovi, and he's putting up offensive numbers, but he just can't play defense at all. And I think he's just being pulled up by these guys. And that contract just does not look great at all. For another 4 years, he's 26, so he's going to be up till 30. They obviously want to sign Ovechkin, who's asking for $13 million. So it's a lot to ask for someone who's not really putting up what you need. It not gonna not say that, but like he's not really fitting the role that you would want him to fit. And Guides, he was asking me if I'd rather have Hyman or Wilson one night.
Hyman. Oh, Hyman. That's not even me being a Leafs homer. Hyman all day.
Hyman any day. I would not think twice. Because you know what, he fits his role. Wilson does not at all, and he's on a way worse contract. So it's got to go to Tom Wilson. I was debating between TJ Soshi man as well, but yeah.
Yeah. Coral, you should have gone with Oshie, man.
Oh,
why does this keep happening, bro? Are you sure you two didn't talk about this before we started the recording, bro?
It's the Brown connection.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I picked. This is going to be like a bit of a hot take.
So it's Oshie.
I'm gonna say it's because of this. I did pick Oshie. I'll say this. I think that Oshie is being elevated because he's playing in Washington. I
Y-
think that he's like Jake Gensel to a slightly lesser extent.
Yeah.
And this is why I think that. If you look at his stats when he was with St. Louis, he was a really solid top six forward, right? I mean, in an 80 game season, he would be on pace for about 50 to 55 points on the Blues, right?
Yeah.
And he spent 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years there, right? So I mean, that should have been the player that he is, right? And St. Louis was never a bad team when he was there. They were a good team. They had talent on that team, right?
Yeah.
So it's not like he was playing with a bunch of scrubs, and that's why his points were like what they were. But you look at him since he's been to Washington, right? First season was about average, right? 51 points in 80 games, around what he usually does, right? But that's getting used to playing with those superstars. Then you look at his next 4 seasons. In 68 games, he had 56 points, which was his second highest in his career. In 68 games, he didn't play a full season, and he nearly tied his career high in points up to that point. The season after that, only 74 games, had 47 points, was on pace for 60 points, right? The year after that, 69 games, 54 points, right? The year after that, 69 games because of the lockout shortened season, 49 points, right? And you look at those numbers, and you're looking at a guy who's on pace for almost 60, 65 points every season, right? And that's like a near 10-point jump from what he was when he was in his theoretical prime, right? When he was in his mid to late 20s, right? Like 20, 26 and up, right? That's what I think is a hockey prime. And he's gotten so much better. You look at his shooting percentages when he was in St. Louis. His career high was 13.9, which was his rookie year. His second year in Washington, 23. His career low shooting percentage in Washington is higher than his career shooting percentage in St. Louis. Just think about that. How is that even possible? His career average when he was with St. Louis was basically about 10%. Since he's been in Washington, it's hovering like 17, 18%. Those are Gensel type numbers.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
unheard.
That's when you have that situation where you have a good winger that's playing with elite talent, a guy like Ovechkin, that teams have
Right.
to account for, right?
Yeah.
A puck moving defenseman like Carlson, right, who had a breakout season this year. A guy like Backstrom and Kuznetsov, who are just great two-way centers, right? Like Oshie's a good player, but he's not 65, 70 points per season good player. He's the guy who's talented enough to be in a top six, but has seen a late career ascendance because he's playing with guys like Ovechkin.
And just another thing, that his contract isn't the prettiest.
Yeah.
He's got like another 4 or 5 years left at like almost 6 mil. Which is a lot to pay for TJ Oshie. And just another thing, I feel like a lot of teams are starting to do this now, where they're signing decent or okay wingers for cheap, and they immediately play them with elite talent. And that's when they break out, and that's when bad contracts are going to be are going to going to be handed out. Case in point, like I think Dominic Cahoon's going to break out Leon Draisaitl, but what if he gets 60 points when
Yeah.
that's not really the type of player he is? He's going to be asking for 6-7 million, and that's going to put a team in the cap crunch. Teams should be worried about this, because I mean you're seeing it happen so much now. There's a lot every year. There's like an unknown player that bang breaks out, gets paid, and then he's just average.
Yeah.
And for Oshie, I can definitely see your points on that, Siakam. Um, and yeah, it's just crazy to think that he's at a 10% shooting percentage in St. Louis, and now he's upwards until 18, which is insane.
Yeah. I feel like TJ Oshie is one of those guys that's like defined by one moment, and that moment for him was that shootout.
Oh
Right?
yeah,
Oh yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah.
another one is Jake Gardner, who's defined in a bad way by his
Yeah.
game sevens. It's the same thing with Frederick Anderson.
right.
It's like you can't judge a player off that one moment, and teams for some reason decided to do that with Oshie, and now he's on this contract and he's regressing. Well, solo, he's regressing, but he's playing with really good players, and that's bringing up his numbers. He's going to keep playing, and he's going to keep asking for more money if he keeps on going after his 38. Oh, wow. His contract's up when he's 38, by the way. That's just,
Yeah, yeah,
38?
that
yeah.
is not good.
And
Oh,
I
wow.
mean, and I think, and the scary thing is, he's got what, another 5 years left,
Yeah,
and
38 when he's up. Holy
and
crap.
if he's someone who's super durable, that's not even as bad. Like Shea Weber, right? Like he's got a bad contract, but at least you know he'll play
Yeah.
for those years, right? Oshie hasn't played a full season in the NHL since his rookie. Never. He's never played a full 82 game season. He's always been injured in some way or form, and especially in the last 4 years in Washington, he hasn't played more than 75 games in a season. Right, so he's a guy who's had some injury concerns. As he gets older, that injury concern is just going to get bigger and bigger. And if Washington gets in a situation, gets injured for like 20, 30 games in a season, they're going to have to do what the Leafs do, right? They're going to have to stick the guy in LTIR. And I just hate to see someone like Oshie's career just end in that fashion because he's too good of a
Right.
player for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I gotta. Are you still talking, Siakam?
No, I'm done. I'm done.
All right.
Alright, yeah. So, you know what? We've been going for a hell of a long time. What's it probably?
Oh yeah.
This is almost like 2 hours long.
Yeah, I know, right? We got 3 Zoom meetings, so that's 40 minutes each, an hour and a half of just
Yeah,
talking to you about,
Content.
yeah,
about like what, 16 players or something like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, I mean more if you think about it, because we had different players for some of them, right? So it was probably more along the lines of 20.
Yeah, we spent a
yeah.
lot of time talking about Pittsburgh.
I mean, Pittsburgh's just. I mean, I could talk all day about Pittsburgh. I
Oh
don't even
yeah,
like how they handled their goalie situation. I don't.
Oh yeah, that
I
was
think
terrible.
yeah,
I think Jari's going to be garbage next year, and then Penguins
Hon-
fans are going to demand for him to get traded for.
Like honestly, like just like I know this is off topic, but I'm gonna predict it right now. Smith is gonna have a great year. Jari's gonna have a trash year. They're gonna trade Jari. They're gonna have some new up and coming goalie, and the cycle continues.
Yeah.
Because honestly, I'm not sold on Jari just yet because it was his first whole year, and like I know this is way off topic, but you just look at the Smiths' past numbers in the NHL. They were solid, and I don't know why they chose to trade Murray. It should have been Jari.
yeah. To be
Yeah.
honest, like Murray's proven himself. You can say what you want about his glove hand or whatever, but
Yeah.
he's proven himself. He's won 2 Stanley Cups with the team. He came in when Fleury was injured. When was it Jeff Zatkoff was?
Oh yeah, Jeff Zakov, baby.
Yeah, when he was the backup. So he proved himself. One bad year, and Pens fans are all over him. So I don't
And
know if
Penguins fans, this isn't us hating on you, or
Yeah.
maybe it kind of is, but
that
like
it kind of
Murray
is.
deserved better, man. He won 2 cups with you guys, and he had one bad season, and you guys were ready to chuck him out the window.
Yeah. Oh wow, we got another 10 minutes left on this meeting now. Oh,
Oh man, we've been talking for a while, huh?
yeah. So what's the next one gonna be? We got the Atlantic, and then we got Mr. Emerson on. Right?
Yeah, and I think you have Johnston coming on soon, so it's gonna be a busy week. And a
Chris
busy,
Johnston, right?
Yeah.
Chris Johnston.
That's gonna be a fun interview.
Oh my
Yeah.
god, I still can't
and,
believe we got him.
Yeah,
and sorry, see, I can go.
yeah. I was just about to say, like, you guys won't want to miss that one when that video comes
Oh,
out.
yeah.
That's gonna be so fun. Got a lot of questions lined up. It's gonna be a great time.
And you know what? It's not just about. Oh yeah, go ahead, Shay. Sorry.
Sorry, and just before we end this, Ira, if you're still watching this, I'm sorry that we keep trashing your team. I mean, when there's an opportunity to jump in, we just gotta. So I'm sorry
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah, and you know what about Chris Johnston? You know what? It's not just about the hockey that he's going to come on to talk, because you know what? For a lot of us, if it's not being an NHL player, it's being an insider.
Yeah,
That's his
that
dream job.
yeah,
So he's going to come on and talk about that, and I'm really excited for that part, even more than the hockey part. So
same.
yeah,
It's
so
gonna be great. It's gonna be great.
we got
Got
something. Yeah, go ahead.
a lot of great content lined up for you guys. We hope you've enjoyed this one.
Oh
Took us a lot of time to make. But
Yeah, we got
Yeah,
some
long time.
huge lined up after Chris Johnston, by the way.
Oh yeah, we're not gonna spoil that one yet, but it's gonna be a treat. So
A real treat.
yeah, thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you next time.